What's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to continue our coverage over the X-Men, but now it's time for us to dive into another X-Men crossover, better known as Kings of Pain. Now, Kings of Pain took place in some of the X titles annuals around this time in Marvel Comics, plus a New Warriors annual as well. Now, with that being said, this crossover is bringing back a certain character that we have not seen in a very long time, and I am talking about the idea of the early days of Chris Claremont's run on the X-Men, the real early days on his run on the X-Men. Now, with that being said, when it comes to this character coming back, they're trying to do something new and different with the character. But something else I do want to mention is that this is not the New Mutant team that you all know and love, because around this time in Marvel Comics, they were doing a transition from New Mutants over to X-Force. And so even though the first chapter is a New Mutants annual, well, they're calling themselves X-Force by this point in Marvel Comics. But they're the first team that we're going to see in this crossover. And so getting into the first chapter for today's video, we do pick up with New Mutants Annual number 7, where we actually pick up with a team better known as the Alliance of Evil. Now, the Alliance of Evil actually used to work for Apocalypse in the early days of X-Factor Comics, and we have not seen these characters for a good while now, but these characters are right now attacking a school better known as St. Simon Academy. Now, this school is somewhat important because at this school there are two mutants known as Artie and Leech who used to live with X-Factor in the early days of X-Factor Comics. You see, when it came to X-Factor, they were going around trying to find different mutants who may need their help to learn more about their abilities or to learn how to control their abilities. And so after a while, when it came to X-Factor, they realized that even though they are able to give these kids some kind of skills with their powers, these kids still need an education. And so unfortunately, when it came to Artie and Leech, they were sent over to this school right here to get that education. Now, when it came to Artie and Leech, they met another kid known as Whiz Kid. And all three characters, plus the rest of the kids that X-Factor has saved over the years, had formed a new team called the X-Terminators. Now, the X-Terminators was Marvel trying to have another young team of mutants out there. Unfortunately, it didn't last that long because right after you had the X-Terminators appear, they went away very quickly and most of the team went to go join the New Mutants. And so when it comes to Artie, Leech, and also WizKid, they were left behind at this school. Now, all three kids, they truly believe they have the ability to stop the Alliance of Evil. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you right now, they are completely wrong. Now, there are two other characters with the Alliance of Evil who are new to Marvel Comics, one being Harness and the other one being Piecemeal. Now, when it comes to Harness, their name gives it away very quickly. They have the ability to put someone in a harness. But for Piecemeal, well, he's a tad bit different. You see, what they're doing right now, they're going to different locations to collect a certain kind of energy. And Piecemeal is being used to store that certain kind of energy inside of him. Now, Piecemeal is just a kid, but unfortunately, he's being forced to do this. And so when you have Harness and Piecemeal arrive at the academy, well, he goes ahead and absorb this certain kind of energy. And once they got that energy, they're like, hey, time to leave, let's go. Now, before they do leave, you have Tower, one of the members of the Alliance of Evil, knock out WizKid, Leech, and Artie before they left. And so they move on to the next location. Now, once you have WizKid wake back up, he's in the medical room, but then he realized that Boom Boom and Cannonball are there because when it came to the X-Terminators, they used to work alongside with the New Mutants, so he knows them very well, except when he looks around the room, he realized that Cannonball and Boom Boom are not with the usual New Mutants team. And he's kind of like, what in the world is going on here? Because like I said earlier, around this time in Marvel Comics, Marvel was moving away from the New Mutants and going into X-Force. And so you have Boom Boom and Cannonball say, hey, the team you knew are long gone. Meet our new team, X-Force, and meet our new team members like Feral, Warpath, Cable, Shatterstar, and also Domino. We're X-Force. But after you have Boom Boom and Cannonball being able to introduce everyone to WizKid, it's Cable saying, okay, cool, listen, kid, talk right now. We need to know what in the world is going on. You see, when it comes to X-Force, they have been trying their best to chase down the Alliance of Evil. But the problem is, every single time they arrive at what could be the next location the Alliance is going to attack at, they're a tad bit too late. When they arrive, the Alliance had already left, like the Academy earlier. And so for Cable, he's kind of wondering, what is the Alliance truly after? Now, for our heroes, they know a lot of information about most of the Alliance, but not the two newest members, Harness and Piecemeal. And the big question is right now, who are they? But also, what is the Alliance truly after? And so now we have to jump over to Gentek. Now, Gentek is a company, one of the two companies that is going to be really important in this crossover. So when it comes to Gentek, they were hired by a mysterious employer to create a certain kind of genetic material. The problem is, though, they got word that the Alliance of Evil is going around the world to different locations to absorb that same kind of genetic material. So the energy we saw earlier when it came to Piecemeal, well, actually, it was not energy. It was some kind of genetic material that was nearby the Academy that he had collected. The same kind this company is also trying to create. And so right now, you have the higher-ups believing that, hey, what if our employer has somehow also hired the Alliance of Evil? But at the same time, they don't want to believe that. But then we pick up with another company known as IDIC. Now, IDIC is actually a company who had hired the Alliance of Evil to go around and collect that certain kind of genetic material. But they're also working on their own project as well, a containment casing to put all that material inside of it. But the question is right now, what is their end goal though? And so now we have to jump over to Niagara Falls. Now, when we do, we see the Alliance of Evil once again there, but this time they're doing crowd control to push everybody back to allow Harness and Piecemeal to be able to collect another piece of that genetic material. Except right after you have Piecemeal being able to collect that small piece of material, well, that is when you have X-Force arrive. Now, when X-Force does arrive, they are able to take down most of the Alliance with no problem at all. Now, for Harness and Piecemeal, they realize they gotta dip out because their goal was to go around to different locations to collect that genetic material. They were hired to do that. And so you have Harness grab Piecemeal and they jump off an edge. Now you believe, okay, they had just committed suicide or they killed themselves to get away from X-Force. But in reality, Harness has the ability to teleport. And so they were able to get away while the rest of the Alliance got captured by X-Force. Now you have Cable and Domino walk over the tower and say, you are going to tell us every single thing you know about your employer and what they are trying to collect. But on that same last page where we see Domino and Cable about to interrogate Tower, we go to a different location for just a few panels where we see two guys playing chess against one another. Now these two guys, they are the ones who are currently behind everything, and they're playing this game of chess with all the different characters who are so far involved in this story. Now for Cable and Domino, they were able to interrogate Tower. Now Tower does inform our heroes that the Alliance of Evil was actually hired by Gentek. Now what we saw earlier could not be true because Gentek said the Alliance of Evil are going after the same genetic material that we are going after, which means somebody else had hired them. And we saw earlier that IDIC were the ones who actually hired the Alliance Alliance of Evil to collect the genetic material around the world. And so Tower had lied to Domino and Cable, but the problem is our heroes don't know that. And so they went over to the building of Gentech and they actually broke into the compound. Now when they get in there, they knock out all the guards. But once you have our heroes get deep into the actual compound, well, they're confronted by the New Warriors. Now, let's talk real briefly about the New Warriors. Okay, so the New Warriors first appeared back in 1989 in Thor number 411. Matter of fact, that was part of the whole Acts of Vengeance story arc. Now, when it came to the New Warriors, they came together because of Dwayne Taylor, better known as Night Thrasher. You see, when it came to Dwayne, his parents were murdered. And so because of that, this man said, you know what, I swore revenge against all crime. And so over the years, he would train to become a better fighter, to become a hero. And so after he reached a point where he believed that he was ready to be a hero, he went out of his way to put together a team of characters who could possibly help him take down crime across the world. Now, the reason why the New Warriors are here right now is because, well, Gentech actually hired the team to protect this place. Here's the problem though. The New Warriors nor X-Force are trying to talk to one another. And so now you have both teams just fighting against each other. Now you do have X-Force and the New Warriors actually fight against each other for a good while. And the only reason why they stop fighting against each other is because the owners of Gentech walk into the room. Now for the owners of Gentech, they say, listen X-Force, we hired the New Warriors to protect this place from the Alliance of Evil. Now for Cable, he says that's crazy because we talked to one of the members of the Alliance of Evil, and they told us that actually you hired them. But he says that is not true at all. We got word that the Alliance of Evil was also trying to collect the same kind of genetic material that we are creating here in our labs. And so we realized that sooner or later, the Alliance will come here and try to steal our project. That is why we hired the New Warriors to protect this place. So now Cable and the rest of X-Force, they just realized they got played by the Alliance of Evil, which means, hey, you know what? Let's go back to the prison and talk to them one more time. And maybe this time they'll give us the right information. But now we have to check in with Harness and Piecemeal. Now the last time we saw them was back in Niagara Falls, where they had Piecemeal collect another piece of that genetic material. But apparently that was a while back, because when we do jump back over to them, we see that Piecemeal must have collected a huge amount of the material because now he's bigger in weight. And so we see him begging Harness to just stop because this man cannot take any more. But for Harness, they don't care at all. They say, continue. We're now here in Alaska because there is another piece of that material that you have to collect. So go ahead and do your job. We have a job to complete here. And so once again, we see Piecemeal being able to collect another piece of this genetic material. Now for X-Force and the New Warriors, they have split up into 3 teams. And so when it comes to the first team, they went over to the prison that the Alliance of Evil were assigned to. And so we see our heroes break out Frenzy. Now at first, she truly believes that our heroes are there to break her out, to help her out. But you didn't have Cable say, no, I'm not here to break you out. I'm here to ask you more questions because you lied to me last time. And so this time you better give me the truth or you are going to die. And so you have Frenzy tell the team like, okay, listen, the people who truly did hire us is actually AIM. Now let's not forget that earlier we saw a company known as IDIC be the ones who claimed that they hired the Alliance of Evil. But in reality, that's a fake name, a shell company. The real people in charge of the Alliance is AIM. And so now our heroes know who they have to go after. But here's the thing though. You have Cable say, give me a location of one of their compounds. And so you have Frenzy being able to hand over that piece of information. Now, for the second team, they do arrive at the location the first team learned about from Frenzy. Now, for the second team, when they do arrive at that location, they do find that AIM was working on some kind of containment ceiling device shaped in a way of a human. And so that tells us that when it comes to the alliance of evil, Harness, and also Piecemeal, the reason why they were collecting that genetic material was to put that material in this human-shaped containment ceiling device. And the question is right now, are they trying to create a new kind of robot? And so for our heroes, they're kind of wondering what else could AIM be up to when it comes to this project. Now, the rest of our heroes, the third and final team, they went over to the sub-basement to Charles Xavier's school. Now, around this time in Marvel Comics, it was the last base for the New Mutants, but they had left the place, and the rest of the school got blown up back in X-Men Inferno. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they want to use Cerebro as a way to cross-reference all the information that they have received from Gentech. Now, here is the big thing. So as we know, the Alliance of Evil, they were going around collecting different pieces of this genetic material. But here's the catch though. All those different pieces came from somewhere else before arriving at those different locations. They all came from Muir Island. And so now the third team has to take that info and tell the rest of the teams what they had just learned. And we do get another moment where we see Harness and we also see Piecemeal going out of their way to collect another piece of that genetic material. Really, it's more Harness saying, you are going to do what I asked you to do here, Piecemeal, so go ahead and absorb another piece of that genetic material. But here's the problem though. Once again, we see that he has gotten bigger and bigger when it comes to weight. And so it's kind of telling us that sooner or later, he will be unable to absorb any more of that material. So once you have all three teams being able to come back together as one big team, you then have Cable realize something very important here. He wants to know, when did all these different pieces break apart from one another? And so you then have our heroes come to find out that it happened back on October 13th, 1987. Now for Cable, that is a very important date. And the reason why? Because that is the same day the X-Men had fought against Proteus, the son to Moira McTaggart. Around this time in Marvel Comics, he was kind of known as the most powerful mutant on the planet. The dude had the ability to warp reality around him. And so for Cable, he's kind of like, oh my God, they're going out of their way to collect the different pieces of Proteus to bring him back to life and to possibly use them for their own evil scheme. And this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.